Her ex burst through the glass doors, rage sharp enough to slice the silence. I stepped between them, mop handle in hand, heart pounding so hard I could barely hear his threats. "You're nothing but a cleaner," he spat. Maybe, but that night, I was the only one willing to stand my ground. It was close to midnight, and I was still pushing that old mop down the marble hallway, trying to make the floor shine before the next morning's meetings. The building was dead quiet, the kind of silence that hums in your ears. My feet ached, my back was sending out small protests, and all I could think about was getting home to check on my little girl, Emily. She always kicked off her blanket in her sleep, no matter how many times I tucked her in. I just finished wringing out the mop when the feeling hit me, like someone was standing right behind me. You spend enough nights alone in an empty building, you get used to sounds, the hum of the vents, the buzz of fluorescent lights. But this was different. Heavy, steady, like a presence. I turned, heart kicking in my chest. And there she was, Olivia Grant, the CEO, the woman whose name everyone whispered like she was some kind of legend or a warning. She stood there in the shadows near the glass doors, still in her power suit, but her face looked different than it did in those corporate photos. Softer, but also searching. "Mr. Hayes," she said, her voice cutting clean through the silence. I froze with the mop in my hands. "Evening, ma'am," I managed, trying not to sound like a man about to get fired. "If there's a problem with the floors, I can fix it right away." She took a few steps closer. Her heels echoed across the marble. "That's not why I'm here," she said quietly. "I saw what you did last week." I frowned. "I'm not sure I follow." "The intern," she said. "Lily. She spilled coffee during the board meeting." Everyone laughed. "But you didn't. You gave her your napkin, told her to stand tall. She said your words kept her from quitting that night." I blinked, not sure what to say. I didn't think anyone noticed. She just looked like she needed a hand. Olivia's expression softened a little more, the kind of look people wear when they're fighting to keep something inside. "That kindness," she said, "that strength, it's rare. And tonight, I need it." Before I could ask what she meant, the glass doors behind her slammed open. A tall man in an expensive suit stormed in, his voice echoing like thunder. "Olivia," he barked. "So this is where you've been hiding, with a janitor?" She flinched, just slightly. I knew that kind of reaction. The kind you get when a voice still carries too much power over you. Nathan Blake. I recognized him from the news, a high-level investor, and her ex. The guy who'd publicly humiliated her at a charity event a few months back. He stepped forward, his sneer curling. Pathetic. Trading boardrooms for broom closets. I set the mop handle upright and moved between them. "She asked for help," I said evenly. "That's what I'm doing." Nathan's smile was pure poison. "You? You're nothing but a cleaner." I felt the calluses in my hands bite into the wood. "Sometimes," I said. "The people who clean up the mess are the only ones strong enough to carry others through it." Olivia's eyes flicked toward me, tears shimmering, pride trying to hold steady. Nathan laughed, short and cruel. "You think this janitor can protect you from me?" Olivia's voice didn't waver. "I remember exactly who you are, Nathan. That's why I walked away." He took another step closer, his cologne thick in the air. "Walk away, mop man. This is real life. Power, money, reputation. You don't belong here." I didn't move. I thought of Emily sleeping 2 neighborhoods away, the heater rattling, the fridge humming in that tiny apartment. "I belong anywhere someone's being pushed around," I said quietly. "And right now, that's her." He stared at me, eyes narrowing like he couldn't decide if I was brave or stupid. Probably both. A couple of security guards showed up at the far end of the lobby, unsure whether to intervene. Everyone knew Nathan Blake's name could make or break a career. But before they could act, Olivia raised a hand. "It's fine," she said. "I've got it." Nathan's jaw tightened. "You'll regret this, Liv. Tomorrow I'll go to the board. You'll be a headline by lunch, a cautionary tale by dinner. And you," he jabbed a finger at me, "start looking for another job." I looked him straight in the eye. "I've had worse days than you can imagine," I said. "And I'm still standing." His face went red. Then he spun on his heel and stormed out. The glass doors sighed shut behind him. The lobby fell quiet again, except for the whisper of the fountain. Olivia let out a long, shaking breath. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. I leaned the mop back into the bucket. "Maybe I did." She smiled then, not wide, just a hint of relief breaking through steel. "Walk with me," she asked. 5 minutes. I nodded. And just like that, The janitor followed the CEO into the night. We rode the elevator in silence, the kind that isn't uncomfortable but charged with something you can't quite name. Olivia stood beside me, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the rising numbers. Every few floors, the faint hum of machinery filled the space, but neither of us spoke. I could feel the weight of her thoughts, the kind that comes when your world's shifting and you're trying not to show it. When the doors opened, cool air swept in. The rooftop garden spread out before us, planters glowing under soft lights, the skyline stretching far and alive. Wind tugged gently at her hair as she walked ahead, heels tapping against the stone. I stayed a step behind, giving her space. She looked like someone who'd spent her whole life running and finally needed to stop. "My father built this company," she said after a moment, leaning on the railing. "He taught me to read balance sheets before I could ride a bike. And he taught me something else, something I wish I hadn't learned so well. He told me never to waste time on people who couldn't help me climb." Her voice cracked slightly, but she steadied it fast. "You made me realize how wrong he was. I didn't know what to say, so I did what I always do best. I listened. Sometimes people don't need fixing. They just need someone who won't look away. I made choices that earned me respect from men like Nathan," she continued, her eyes tracing the city lights. "But that kind of respect doesn't last. Not when it's built on fear. Tonight, I stopped pretending. And it's going to cost me." I shifted my weight, feeling the night breeze against my neck. "What do you need?" I asked. She turned to me, surprised, as if no one had asked her that in years. "You're not going to tell me it'll all work out." "Maybe it will," I said. "But maybe it'll hurt first. Either way, I asked what you need." Her shoulders dropped a little, like she'd just exhaled a month's worth of tension. "I need to tell the truth before someone else twists it into a lie." She looked at me then, really looked, and said, "Would you come to the board meeting tomorrow morning? 8 o'clock. As you are. In your uniform." "Me?" I blinked. "Why?" "Because I can talk about integrity until they fall asleep," she said. "But one clip of you helping that intern, one moment of you standing your ground tonight, that says more than I ever could." I rubbed at the scar near my wrist, the one I got unloading pallets back when I worked warehouse jobs. "And if this costs me mine?" I asked quietly. "I'll make sure it doesn't," she said fast, then winced. "That sounded wrong. I don't mean charity. I mean, people like you belong in the right rooms. People who remember what decency looks like." I looked at her, then out over the city again. "I get off at 7:30. I can be there by 8. Her throat worked like she was swallowing something heavy. "Thank you," she whispered. We didn't say anything else as we rode the elevator back down. The air between us had changed. Not romance. Not yet. Just respect. The kind built in silence and honesty. In the lobby, I saw Lily waiting by the front desk, clutching a lunchbox. She looked nervous, like a kid about to get scolded. "Mr. Hayes," she said, stepping forward. "You left this in the break room." She held out Emily's lunchbox, the one with peeling unicorn stickers and a crack in the lid. I chuckled, taking it from her. "You just saved breakfast tomorrow." "Thanks." Lily smiled shyly. "You saved me last week." "Fair trade." Then she noticed Olivia standing behind me and froze. "Oh my God, Ms. Grant." I wasn't." Olivia's tone softened in a way I hadn't heard before. "Relax, Lily. Thank you for helping Daniel." Lily looked between us, reading something she couldn't quite name. "He helps everyone," she said quickly, then flushed bright red. "Sorry, he does." Olivia smiled faintly. "Don't apologize. It's true." I nodded at Lily, then turned toward the exit. Frank, the night guard, was at his usual post by the door, gray hair, bad knees, a good man trying to hold things together. "You all right, Hayes?" he asked, studying my face. "Ask me after 8 a.m., I said with a tired grin. I slipped a 5 into his palm. "Grab a coffee on me, Frank." He raised an eyebrow. "You sure? That's your lunch money." "Kindness doesn't cost," I said. "It just pays better." Then I stepped out into the cold, city lights washing over me like another kind of sunrise. The streets were nearly empty. I jogged the 3 blocks home, the bus having long since stopped running. When I crept into our small apartment, Emily was asleep in her bed, her stuffed owl tucked under her arm. I kissed her forehead and sat in the kitchen for a long time, staring at the rent notice stuck to the fridge. Nathan's words echoed in my head. "You're nothing but a cleaner." And my own quiet answer followed. Sometimes the people who clean up the mess are the ones strong enough to carry others through it. I decided right there I'd never apologize for who I was again. The next morning, I was back in that same building, but this time, my mop and bucket stayed downstairs. I still wore my navy work polo and the same scuffed shoes, but I'd taken an extra minute to smooth the wrinkles out. My stomach hadn't decided if it was hunger or nerves. Probably both. It was 7:52 a.m. when I stepped off the elevator onto the 26th floor. The air up there felt different, colder, sharper. Everything smelled like polished wood, citrus cologne, and ambition. A cluster of people in expensive suits stood outside the glass boardroom, whispering like they were waiting for a verdict. And there he was, Nathan Blake. Perfect tie, perfect smirk. He looked like a man who'd already written the ending. When Olivia walked down the hall, shoulders straight, her eyes found me immediately. For just a second, her face softened. She reached out, touched my arm lightly, then pushed open the glass doors. The meeting started the way all big meetings seem to: formality, fake smiles, and words that didn't mean much. But when Nathan cleared his throat, I could feel it coming. "Colleagues," he began, voice dripping with confidence. "Our CEO's judgment is in question. Late-night fraternization with staff, reputational risk, potential HR nightmare. I think the board deserves transparency." Olivia didn't flinch. She lifted a hand. "I'll address it directly." She nodded to her assistant at the console. The screen behind them flickered to life. First came grainy footage from the week before. Lily spilling coffee, her hands shaking, the room full of laughter. I remembered that day, the heat in her face, the way she looked ready to cry. Then the image of me kneeling down, handing her my napkin, saying something no one could hear. But you could feel it. The room could feel it. Next came last night's lobby feed. Nathan storming in, Olivia stepping back, and me standing between them with the mop handle gripped like a weapon. No audio, just images, but sometimes that's all you need. The room went quiet except for the faint buzz of the projector. Olivia spoke. "This company was built on the idea of making life simpler for people. But if we can't honor the ones who make it possible, the ones who clean our floors, guard our doors, and fix our mistakes, then we've lost the point. We can be excellent and decent. The second part isn't optional." She gestured toward me. "This is Daniel Hayes. He is the standard." Nathan laughed, short and sharp. "You're sentimental, Olivia. Dangerous. You don't run a corporation with bedtime stories." I hadn't planned on saying anything. I didn't belong in that room, not really. But something in me shifted. I thought about Emily, about Lily, about Frank and his bad knees, and about all the people who go unseen. I stood. "I clean spills," I said simply. "But I see things, too. I see who holds the door when someone's hands are full, who says thank you to the person working late, who notices a kid crying in an elevator and kneels instead of scolding. You can build a company on fear if you want, or you can build one on respect. Only one lasts." The silence that followed felt endless, but not empty. It was heavy, alive. Something in that room cracked open. An older board member, silver hair and a tie worth more than my month's rent, leaned forward. "Mr. Hayes," he said slowly, "how long have you worked here?" 18 months, I answered. "And you intend to stay?" "If I'm useful," I said. "If not, I'll still be me somewhere else." A younger member, couldn't have been older than 30, spoke up next. Sneakers with his suit, small act of rebellion. "I've been trying to tell everyone that culture isn't perks or ping pong tables. It's what we reward." "I'm persuaded." Nathan's face went red. "This is absurd." But the chairwoman raised her hand. "We'll vote," she said calmly, "on Ms. Grant's continued leadership and on reaffirming our code of conduct to elevate decency as a core value." Hands went up, one after another. Nathan's jaw locked. I didn't understand all the formalities, but I understood the chairwoman's smile when she said, "Motion carries." Olivia's exhale was barely audible, but I heard it. Relief mixed with disbelief. When the meeting ended, people filed out more quietly than they'd entered. A few nodded to me. One older man shook my hand like he'd just sealed a major deal. Nathan lingered at the doorway, his voice low and venomous. "You got lucky," he hissed. "This isn't over." I met his stare. Not with anger, just pity. "It could be," I said, "if you ever decide it's more important to be decent than to win." He scoffed and walked away, the kind of man who never realizes how small he looks until everyone's done listening. When I turned back, Olivia was still there, watching me. "You didn't just help me," she said softly. "You helped all of us." I shrugged. heat creeping up my neck. You did the hard part. She shook her head. No. You reminded me who I want to be. Her phone buzzed, and she glanced at the screen, then back at me. Lunch? She asked. My treat. And before you say anything about charity, call it a raise preview. I laughed, surprised by how natural it felt. I was going to say I have to pick up Emily at 3, but lunch works. We stepped into the elevator, standing side by side. The mirrored walls reflected two people who probably shouldn't have been in the same frame, CEO and janitor. But for once, we both looked a little lighter than the night before. The doors slid shut with a quiet chime, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged exactly where I was. The restaurant Olivia picked wasn't one of those sleek downtown places where waiters wear black gloves and call you sir. It was a corner diner right across from the office tower, a little rundown, smelling like bacon grease and strong coffee, with a neon sign that flickered whenever a bus passed. The kind of place where nobody cares who you are, only that you tip decently and don't make a mess. She slid into the booth across from me, setting her phone aside. I chose this place on purpose, she said, glancing around at the cracked vinyl seats. It's somewhere no one would expect me to be. Besides, their pie could humble any Michelin chef. I smiled. Now that's a reason I can respect. The waitress came over, an older woman with tired eyes and a name tag that said Margie. She poured our coffee, gave Olivia a once-over, then looked at me. New couple, she teased, a sly grin forming. Olivia blushed, which was something I didn't think CEOs were capable of. Something like that, she murmured. Margie winked. He's a keeper. I can always tell. Then she shuffled off, humming to herself. I looked at Olivia over my mug. You realize people are going to talk if we keep showing up together. Let them, she said, stirring sugar into her coffee. The world's already written me off once. If they're going to talk, I'd rather give them something worth talking about. For a few minutes, the noise of the diner filled the space between us, the hiss of the griddle, forks clinking on plates, the low murmur of conversation. It felt normal, something I hadn't felt in years. Not as a janitor, not as a single dad juggling bills and bedtime stories. Just a man sharing coffee with someone who saw him. Then the bell over the door jingled. And just like that, the air changed. Nathan Blake walked in. He looked out of place, tailored suit, expensive watch, eyes like knives. The chatter in the diner dropped a notch as he scanned the room, then locked onto us. His jaw tightened. He moved fast, heading straight for our booth. You think this is funny? He snapped, slamming his palm on the table hard enough to rattle the cups. Parading around with him after humiliating me in front of the board? Every head in the diner turned. Even the cook froze mid-flip at the grill. I didn't move. Lower your voice, I said calmly. You're disturbing people. He sneered. You don't give orders. You don't even belong in the same room. Olivia's voice cut through the tension like glass. He belongs wherever I say he belongs, Nathan. You don't own me anymore, and you don't own this company. Her words hung there, sharp and clear. For the first time, I saw something flicker in his eyes, a crack, small but real. You'll regret this, he hissed. I'll dig until I find something. Anything. And when I do, your janitor boyfriend won't just be out of a job. He'll be out of this city. I met his stare, steady and cold. You already lost, Nathan. Not because of me. Because you don't know how to be a decent man. And one day, even the people afraid of you will walk away. For a second, he faltered. Just a breath, but enough. His confidence slipped. Then he straightened, muttered something under his breath, and stormed out, the doorbell clanging wildly as the diner collectively exhaled. Margie hurried over, whispering, Pies on the house. People like him don't win forever. Olivia let out a shaky laugh, the tension finally breaking. Thank you, she said softly. I shook my head. Didn't do it for thanks. I know, she said, her eyes wet but steady. That's why it means everything. We sat there for a while after that, not saying much, just watching the world outside keep moving like none of it had happened. Cars passed. People hurried to work. Life went on. But something between us had changed. Not romance. Not yet. But trust. The kind you don't find in boardrooms or contracts. The kind that grows quietly, built on shared moments and what they cost. For the first time since that night in the lobby, she looked like she could finally breathe. The weeks that followed didn't turn my life into some movie ending. I still woke before sunrise, still made Emily's breakfast, still caught the early bus that rattled like it was held together by prayer. But something was different. People looked at me differently now. When I walked through the lobby, folks from accounting nodded, security guards smiled wider, and even the front desk receptionist who used to glance past me started saying, "Good morning, Mr. Hayes." I didn't become rich or powerful overnight, but I had something better: respect. The quiet kind that can't be bought or demanded. Olivia changed too. She meant what she said that day in the boardroom. Bit by bit, she started reshaping the company's culture. She created mentorship programs, started listening to employees nobody used to hear, and made sure every worker, from the janitors to the senior execs, knew they mattered. Every time she gave a presentation, she told the story of the night a janitor reminded her what leadership meant. That part always embarrassed me. But deep down, I was proud. Sometimes she'd stop by during my shift, just to talk for a few minutes. No agenda, no cameras, just conversation. She'd ask about Emily, about how we were doing. And once, when she found out the after-school program raised its fees, she quietly made a company education fund happen within a week. She never said it was for me, but I knew better. Still, I made sure to keep my feet on the ground. Heroes are for storybooks. I was just a man doing his job and trying to keep his kids safe. One evening, Emily and I were walking home from the grocery store. The sky was fading into that soft gold of early dusk, the kind that makes even cracked sidewalks look beautiful. When we passed the office tower, its windows glittered like 1,000 stars stacked on glass. Emily squeezed my hand. "Daddy," she said, pointing up. "Is that where you're a hero?" I stopped for a second, taken off guard. "No, sweetheart," I said with a small laugh. "That's just where I work." She frowned. "But Miss Olivia says you saved her." Her words caught me by the throat. I lifted her onto my shoulders, feeling her small hands grab my hair for balance. "Maybe," I said quietly. "Maybe we saved each other." She giggled, resting her chin on top of my head as we walked. The city hummed around us, traffic lights blinking, shop doors closing, people hurrying home. Somewhere out there, Nathan Blake was probably still trying to rebuild his reputation. But that wasn't my problem. I'd learned something far more valuable than winning. Kindness isn't weakness. It's rebellion. A quiet one, sure, but powerful enough to change the direction of people's lives when you least expect it. That night, after Emily fell asleep, I sat by her bed for a while, watching her breathe, the stuffed owl tucked under her arm. Then I stood at the window, looking out at the faint reflection of our little apartment and the glow of the city beyond it. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel invisible. I didn't have a title, or money, or power, but I had something far greater: peace. And when the morning came, I'd lace up my shoes, clock in again, and keep doing what I'd always done. Only now, I knew it mattered. Because sometimes, the people who clean up the mess aren't just fixing what's broken. They're showing the rest of the world what strength really looks like.